know I love to be wined and dined in a Chicago cafe. The chefs are the best and the menus are so gourmet. The best cuisine on the scene is in Chicagoland, USA. Great chefs of Chicago. Great chefs of Chicago. World-class cooking, continental style. The recipe will make you linger a little while. Great chefs of Chicago.
Welcome to Great Chefs of Chicago, a television masterclass with chefs of some of the finest restaurants in the Chicago metropolitan area. This time, Printer's Row and chef owner Michael Foley. As a third-generation Chicago restaurateur, Chef Foley was shanghaied into the family business early on and thus achieved a compulsory apprenticeship. Subsequently, he explored other careers at universities on the East Coast, but in 1977 was drawn once and for all back to Chicago and to the kitchen. Several trips to France reinforced his desire to create a restaurant where he could apply his unique style. A site was found in Chicago's rehabilitated South Loop area, and in 1981 he opened Printer's Row. The restaurant and its young chef have achieved overnight success, culminating most recently in Chef Foley's recognition by Cook's Magazine as one of the 50 leaders in American cuisine. The menu at Printer's Row is ever-changing, with dishes masterminded by Chef Foley. His thinking is fresh and imaginative, as the menu for this program suggests.
The chef begins an offbeat hors d'oeuvre, a large wild mushroom which will be marinated and roasted on a bed of pine needles.
Using water on it just makes the mushroom absorb it, and it's really not necessary, water on the mushroom. And we're going to make a little marinade. Marinade traditionally in a Japanese manner with a little bit of soy, regular sake, good amount of sake, and a little bit of sweet sake, which is called mirin. That is combined with a little bit of dried fish, and here some bonito or some tuna fish, a little bit of mackerel, some sardine is all combined with a little bit of ground seaweed, and that will be the flavor of the marinade. The mushroom is very lightly rolled into that, and we're going to let that very carefully soak up that, and this will be our hors d'oeuvre. As that's soaking, we're going to prepare a little pan for it. Pine needles, an extra little touch here. Pine needles being very flavorful, aromatic. The sap in them giving a tremendous flavor to this dish, but simple, going very well with the soy. Pine needles are broken off, and then we're going to add that to a little pan, laying the pine needles down, and then taking the mushroom that we have soaked and baking it in the oven for about 5 minutes.
One ingredient in the marinade is dried dashi, a Japanese flavoring agent available in Oriental specialty stores. The mushroom is roasted at 400 degrees and is turned once.
When the cooking of that dish is done, and I've started one a little bit earlier for us because it takes about 4 or 5 minutes as an hors d'oeuvre, the mushroom has very nicely absorbed the liquid, and we're going to present that as the hors d'oeuvre when the guest sits down today. Mushroom is very carefully cut. Simply presented as the hors d'oeuvre, and then I'm going to garnish it with a little bit of additional pine needle. That'll be our hors d'oeuvre today. From here, we wanted to move into a little terrine of duck liver. And New York is producing an excellent product right now. But here I'd like to introduce it in a way which is a little bit more a little bit more casual for the guests. So we've done two things. We've made a little salami, and that salami is going to come into the dish with a little bit of white truffle, and then the duck liver itself. Now, the liver is a little bit limp right now, and that's simply because I've soaked it for about 2 hours to loosen it before I bake it in the tureen today. And pulling out the tendon, some of the tissue that make the liver a little bit, all the blood vessels. It's been soaked to eliminate some of that blood vessel. And we have the liver then broken into its separate lobes. In the tureen, we're going to stud it first. We don't need any butter because the liver is, the cultivating of the liver in the duck, it has had so much meal in it. It's very sweet, and that's why it's so white, because the milk meal. We're going to stud it with the white truffles, very gently.
This colossal liver comes from special-fed New York State ducks.
Pressing hard into the liver to make sure the truffles hold their place. Truffles adding a tremendous amount of aroma, and these truffles coming from Oregon. And then a little bit of seasoning salt has been made with some nutmeg, salt, and a touch of white pepper in it, and we're going to season that liver. And then the salami, too much salt, you know, is very carefully layered over it to give us that little flavor. The salami will add its own seasoning. It's only ground pepper and salt in this particular salami, but a tremendous amount of garlic. The dish is a little bit more peasant, but the liver itself is an elegant dish.
The salami layer of the tureen is cured pork flavored with garlic. Paper-thin slices of any light garlic sausage may be used.
And then from here, we're going to add just a touch more seasoning. Season the outside of the balance of the liver. Truffle could be studded in again. And then the liver is put on top. We're going to slice the liver so that it comes up all the sides. First one side, then the other. And then cover the balance of the tureen with the liver that we have. From here, the dish is covered and baked in an oven starting at 400 degrees. That bain-marie has been brought to the boil. The tureen is carefully added. The 400-degree oven is opened. The tureen is put into the oven, and because of the delicateness of the liver, we're going to shut the door and turn the oven off and let it poach just with the heat of the oven for 20 to 25 minutes. Take it out, chill it into a bain-marie. Now that we've done, and we've also let the tureen ripen. And ripening develops the flavor of the sausage and the truffle that we have done already. And this tureen we have taken out. You can see the fat of the liver that's been melted around it. And you can see the studding of the truffle. And we're going to present it as an hors d'oeuvre today.
After resting in the refrigerator for 2 days, the tureen is unmolded and served at room temperature.
On a plate, the tureen being served at room temperature. And then with the tureen, we're going to serve some additional garnishes. Tureen should always be sliced with a knife that is somewhat warm for presentation. And we have made 2 accompaniments for this today to make it a first course. You can see the studding of the truffle, the tureen itself, and the color. And we're going to add to that today some celery. Celery being previously blanched, simmered in a little bit of vegetable stock. That will garnish our plate.
The other garnish is freshly baked brioche.
When it's so fresh, it really doesn't need to be toasted. That then will be the dish. New York State duck liver, a little bit of braised celery, the brioche itself, and for an added point, a little bit of vinaigrette over that dish. think one of the nicest things about the restaurant is that we continue to develop all the time. And I think that as far as a soup goes, that one of the things we need here is a soup with a combination of sushi. So we've been working on it for a number of years, and this is one of those types of dishes.
A daikon, or Japanese radish, is peeled. Slices will be macerated in salt.
Daikon is cut in such a way as to give us the strip that we need. And as I said, this will be used later on. And we're going to very carefully slice a long strip of this daikon. And it's the sweetest part in the center, so it'll take a second to get that outer side of the daikon off. And then the strip that we're going to use, we will salt to ripen it. That's the outside of it. Now we get into the sweeter part of it, and you need to have it very thin so as to create the petal. Choosing the right piece is important. This is the Fluke prepared as we need it. Must be very fresh for this dish because it's only half cooked. Balance of vegetables are cut. We have leek, 2 segments. We use the nice green part. The balance of it we'll use for another dish later on. That's cut into a julienne piece.
Fluke is a type of flounder.
Pea pods are broken out. We only need 1 for the portion that we're doing today. The pea pod itself is cut into julienne strips. Small pieces of fresh parsley are picked, and here we're using a curly leaf, although Italian parsley is nice, but the curly is a little bit lighter. It's good for the dish. A little bit of our radish sprout, and then potato is cut into the same kind of pieces. And that we will also cut into small strips.
Curly parsley and julienne of leek, pea pod, and potato will be simmered in raspberry vinegar, soy sauce, and vegetable stock. The aromatic broth will accompany the Fluke during presentation.
From here, we're going to make and start the stock. We have a little bit of soy in which was flavored raspberry vinegar. And we're going to add all of our ingredients. The starch in the dish and the potato will not hurt the dish at all. All the ingredients will be added. A little too much potato. And it will be added with some of the soy and a little touch of raspberry vinegar that I've mixed in here for the flour. Raspberry vinegar giving a nice aroma to it. During the last few years, we've been doing a tremendous amount with vegetable stock. Vegetable stock can be made in any way you'd like. Here we have used the liquid left over from the braising of the celery that we had done in the earlier dish, flavored with bay leaf and some thyme. The broth is made ready, and now we prepare the fish into florette. We're going to cut a light scallopini of this fish. Pound it very, very lightly, and then wrap it in a piece of the daikon that has been salted, and you can see how pliable that has become during the last 15 minutes. The fish is lightly wrapped into it, and we're going to form it into a little rosette in a bowl. And the radish sprout being the center of the rosette. And into this broth that we've made, we're going to add some seasoning, a Japanese seasoning. It's a 7-seasoning mixture. It's a grinding of chili peppers, all Japanese chili peppers. And that'll be added to give a little bite to it. A little more if you like it a little hotter. Salt isn't needed here. The fish doesn't need to be salted. It's so fresh, we don't really need to do that. And the whole thing will be gently brought to the boil and then poured over the fish. And for American tastes, I think meeting people halfway between the sushi element and the element of cooked fish is what we like to do here at the restaurant to introduce them to it.
The Fluke and daikon rosette is warmed in a 300-degree oven for 3 to 4 minutes.
So here we have met the guest halfway with a fish that's just lightly been warmed, aromatic broth with vegetables, seasonings, and radish root.
The entree involves 6 different veal cuts and a variety of cooking techniques. Featured are veal medallions, tenderloins, fennel bourbon sausage, kidneys, sweetbreads, and ossobuco or veal shanks, which lead off the dish. The shanks are browned in clarified butter with chopped onion, celery, carrot, and garlic.
Herb is added,
The herbs are thyme, bay leaf, fresh parsley, and peppercorns.
and now that the meat has been browned, we're going to remove it. And let the vegetables sweat for a minute. We've made a little bit of chicken stock and reduced it for flavor. Reduction intensifies the flavor of the stock. We're going to add that to it. And at the same time, add a little bit of veal stock to it, which we have made from the bones earlier. Veal is put back into the liquid. A little bit of tomato product is added.
Chopped, peeled, and seeded tomato is added.
We've added some garlic to the mirepoix earlier. And I'm going to add 1 piece of ginger because I think this adds a little bit different dimension to this rather traditional dish. The meat, as it comes to the boil, top is put on and it will be braised in the oven for 20 minutes, turned over and braised an additional 35 minutes.
With the shanks near completion, the chef will prepare the remaining cuts in a rapid display of culinary sleight of hand.
A little bit of pepper on these. Pepper we're using here is white. All those dishes are now ready. We're going to start with the veal tender because that takes a little bit longer than most. And we've made a little bit of herb oil, seasoning it with the same herbs that we used in the dish: thyme, bay leaf, parsley, and at the end I'm going to put a little basil into it. So that we're going to start on a little grill. And that will be cooking on the grill while we assemble the rest of the dishes. First thing we do is start with the sweetbread. Dry it off. Pan cannot be too hot, nor can it have too much fat. A little bit of shallot added to the pan for flavor. And while that is working, we have the liquid reducing. We will start the sausage, poaching into the liquid, bringing it up to temperature before we saute it in the pan next to it. Careful not to burn the shallot. It must sweeten the sweetbread. Veal loin today, we're going to saute that without fat in a Tefal pan. Pan must come to temperature. Sweetbread is very lightly cooking. We're going to add to it a little bit of cucumber and some of the stock from the braising. A little bit of chicken stock again. Adding a little lid. We will cook it in the oven.
The sweetbreads are braised in a 400-degree oven.
3, maybe 4 minutes. Veal start poaching. This then is sauteing on the veal loin. From here, we're going to turn to the medallion. Take it off the hibachi, turn it over nicely. Let it grill. The sausage itself, before putting it into that saute pan, dry it off. Sausage is then browned nicely. Cooks over a medium fire until it's browned. And from here, we start kidney. Some shallot is added to the hot pan. Kidney is added to the hot pan. And for this dish, a touch of garlic. Kidneys must be sautéed medium rare. The veal is almost finished, and from here we heat our plate up. First, we add the ossobuco. Since we are planning, we have 4 pieces, but we've done other items for just one customer today. We're going to add to this liquid some of the braising liquid from the sweetbread to finish that out and give a little added touch to that. Sweetbread, add it down, some of the kidney over that, some of the cucumber rather. Balance of the meat is added. Sausage, medallion, the kidney pieces themselves.
The veal shank stock and aromatics have been passed through a food mill and reduced. The resulting sauce joins the cuts of veal.
The natural sauce is ladled around and over. Just before service, the tender is finished. Add it to the dish, and that will complete the meal. All components being done at the same time. For dessert today, we're going to do buttercream, chocolate buttercream, with a chocolate cake layered with a little bit of macaroon that has been dried and ground. Buttercream we're not going to be making in a traditional way. We're going to start with a cooked buttercream, one in which the sabayon is cooked, is made with sugar and whole eggs. Incorporating everything into it. Traditional buttercream is made usually with eggs beaten to 3 times its volume over a warm bain-marie and sugar added. It could be made with the same kind of egg yolk beaten and sugar boiled and added. This kind of cooking for the egg yolk first gives a different texture to it. And while it may take a few minutes more, the texture is very important in a very dense buttercream. You can see that the sabayon is mounting almost to the stage that we need it at. A little dangerous, but we're going to turn up the heat a little bit. And you can see now that the bubbles are disappearing and it's to the thick cream stage that we're looking for.
This takes longer than it looks. The sweetened egg yolks are whisked over heat for about 5 minutes in all.
We're adding it, mixer. And we're going to work it at a high rate of speed. Until it's starting to triple in volume. While it's cooking, adding to that a good amount of espresso, always adding against the side of the pan. And then some bitter chocolate that we have previously melted. This is going to work on this whip of the machine until it's nicely worked and cool, and then we'll stir in the butter.
A chocolate genoise, or cake made with eggs, sugar, butter, cake flour, and
We're
cocoa,
using,
has been
because
cut
the
into
cake is
3
a little
layers.
large. This is the same size pan that we started in, basting each layer with a little bit of syrup, flavored lightly with orange and some kind of orange liqueur of your choice. I'm going to use a pastry bag to pipe in the buttercream today. It gives the most level filling. Layer per layer, adding a little bit of macaroon, chocolate,
The topping is 6 ounces each of semi-sweet and unsweetened chocolate which have been combined and melted.
This topping then will be added. It is warm, and it'll give a nice sheen to the top of the dessert. Poured lightly and rolled. This then is refrigerated. That we're going to slice and present with the blood oranges. And the juice from the orange has been cooked over a little bit of heat and mounted with some butter.
The cake is brought to room temperature before service.
Then a final product is put on the plate. Any adjustments are made. And some of the liquid is poured next to it. That then will be the dessert for today.
Chef Foley recommends sake with the wild mushrooms, champagne with the duck liver terrine, sparkling water with the Fluke and Daikon, Pinot Noir with the veal, and Riesling with dessert.
And now, dinner is served. Join us next time for more cooking excitement. This menu compliments of Printer's Row and Michael Foley, another great chef of Chicago.
You'll always find them in Chicagoland. You'll learn all their tricks. You'll understand why eating is kicks in Chicagoland. Come wine and dine where love began. Great chef, great food, great fun in Chicagoland. Yeah, Chicagoland.